So today I'm going to talk about the X rigging rings. As you can see here, there's been lots of stuff written about them, and on the internet and stuff, videos, magazines and stuff. There's articles and lots of literature. They've been around for a couple of years now. So I'm going to give you my opinion for what it's worth. I've been using them probably 2 years now, maybe a bit more. The situation or the scenario you saw in the video clip there was, is often a situation that a lot of climbers are very apprehensive of, and with good reason. Rigging the top of a tree like that. In that situation, it was a fir tree which was dead. About 90 foot, I believe it'd been dead about 2 or 3 years. So, but as you can see, it went pretty smoothly, as it should. I've rigged thousands of tops over the years, so I should know what I'm doing by now. I know when and when not to, how big or how small, whatever. But from a starting point, I will always try and put as many things in my favour as possible, to make the best of the situation, make it that bit safer, where I can. And that usually starts with having a well-practiced ground worker, who understands what I need him to do, somebody who's level-headed. From there onwards, the appropriate rigging line matched with a decent sized lowering device. Obviously the barrel diameter has to match the diameter of rope. And from there onwards, in that clip, as you noticed, I chose to use the rigging rings instead of the traditional pulley block, which arborists have been using very well for many years. But personally, since I've been using the rings, I've found that the the descent of branches is that bit more predictable and easier to coordinate or control. And I think the reason is because they do, even though they're really, rope friendly and really curvy, they do add some friction, So the friction is sort of spread, between the lowering device and the rigging rings. So what friction you create up here, which isn't a huge amount, but it's still a significant amount, it takes some of the weight off the lowering device. To give you another analogy, it's like the spider jack climbing mechanical climbing aid, which uses like a clutch and a little thumb brake. I found that running the climb line directly through a pulley as a tying point made the spider jack all the more temperamental. I thought it was very, very, it's great for advancing, because a pulley obviously has no friction, very, very, very little. So you could just pull yourself around easy, but when it comes to rappelling, all the friction then is on the spider jack, which I found made it very, very sort of jumpy and jerky, and it didn't take me long to burn the clutch out. I know that it's no secret that this particular gadget takes some practice to master. But what I did do was start using a more traditional style friction saver. So obviously it's a little bit harder to advance, but because there was some friction up top, it made this all the more easy to use because there was less friction on the clutch then, so it wasn't as sensitive. You know, it was just much easier to use. And I think the same thing works when it comes to, you know, rigging and lowering branches using the X rings as opposed to using the pulley. I find that the friction is more, because it's spread around, it seems more predictable, as in it's easier to manage for the ground worker, you know, running the line through the lowering device. So what else can I say about them? You know, they're beautifully curvy, obviously, and you know, unlike a pulley, it doesn't matter which way or what they're pressing against up in the tree. There's no kind of sharp edges, there's no kind of gates or spring-loaded bits of things that you have to worry about pressing against the tree, because with the rings it doesn't matter which way they're loaded. It's always, you know, it's always the same thing. They're totally kind of consistent. You know, as well as that, they're very, very lightweight. Obviously they're super strong. You know, I mean, you're never gonna break one. If you did break one, then you know, you're doing something seriously wrong. The drawbacks of them is, well, what are the drawbacks really? Heat on the line I don't think is a big issue. At least from my experience, they do get a bit warm, you know, if you're running branches a long way, but nothing like that I found to be significantly, you know, detrimental to the rigging lines. Obviously, because there's some friction, it's going to be harder, or there's going to be more resistance to haul things up. You know, so within just a regular tree, sort of single tree or group of tree rigging situations, you know, if you were considering hauling stuff up by hand, then you know you're going to find a lot of resistance there compared to using a pulley block. But if you're using a mechanical aid like a winch, or you know, there are several options out there, you know, I've found that we really haven't noticed that much difference. We've never got to a stage where our winch, you know, has not been able to lift something efficiently because we've been using the rings as opposed to a pulley. So it's, you know, it only becomes, you know, the idea of, you know, raising stuff up through the rigging rings only becomes like significant if it's something you're doing by hand, and even then it's not impossible, but it, you know, a pulley would obviously be more efficient. But if you have a mechanical aid, mechanical advantage, you know, there at your disposal, then it's nothing, it's no big deal. Like, it works the same. The other thing, I suppose, is that they're not really midline attachable. You know, you can't just kind of snap one onto the line at any point. You know, if you were to set, say, a redirect somewhere in the tree, if it just came to you, this situation's going to be better if we redirect the line over there somewhere. You can't, you have to actually feed it through. So but having said that, with a little bit of sort of planning, you just sort of kind of set it up that way to start with. Do you know what I mean? It's just good planning, really. Look at the situation and set the line through the ring. Set your redirect first, that is. And then take it off and set the main rigging line, the main rigging point high in the tree. It's no big deal. And as well as that, when these are actually on the line, although they're not kind of you can't disconnect them, but you can move the sling around to different parts of the tree once it's on there. So again, it's all to do with good planning. So the other thing you'll notice as well is when you're working is just how light they are. You can clip them on your saddle and not even notice. It's gotten to the point now where I rarely even use pulleys unless it's purely for lifting and nothing else. If we're doing some winching and we're setting up redirects to actually drag stuff along the ground. In regards to working in a tree, I never thought to say this, but I just, at best, pulleys are getting used as redirects, not because of the convenience of snapping them on if I've made a mistake in planning something and it's easier just to get somebody to send one up rather than move one of the rings around. They've just been kind of relegated for that purpose in favour of these things. And again, it all comes back to that the idea of putting things in your favour, and like as in the video clip there, rigging tops of trees, making the situation that bit easier to control, making the friction more predictable. I've used pulleys for years, and it's never ceased to amaze me how many people still fuck that situation up, like when it comes to dynamic loading, because they just can't regulate the friction on the lowering device. Some people do it splendidly, and then and then they'll make a complete hash of it, and they're sort of staring at the device like saying, what, don't know what happened. But since I've been using the rigging rings, I just can't even think of a situation where that's happened, because like I say, there's less friction on the bollard, and so spreading the friction between top and bottom, it just seems to make it that more predictable. How many wraps to apply, how tight to grip the line, etc. It's just easier to let stuff run, which makes it safer. And it's, in that scenario, you want everything in your favour. At least that's how I look at it. So, and I should say too, there's nothing in this for me, actually. Nobody asked me to do this. I do know the fella that produces these rings, David Driver, and I owe him fuck all, really. He's a friend of mine in a sense that I hardly ever see. He's just somebody I've got to know through the industry, but I don't owe him any favours. But I'm just bringing this up because I think it's really important, and it's a step forward, and it's going to put people in a safer predicament, you know, which is you know, really important, really significant. So yeah, that's it. I mean, if you're using blocks and pulleys, fair enough if you're happy with that, but I do think you're missing out on something for what they are. They're not expensive, you know, they're really robust, they're really lightweight, and you know, there's this kind of, I don't know if it's a misconception, if that's the right word or not, that, you know, a friction-free system in a tree is better for rigging, and in fact it totally isn't. Like, do you know, I mean, in lots of situations, you know, in the past I've opted for natural crotch rigging because it's safer, because it puts friction in the tree, you know what I mean, as opposed to and kind of trying to eliminate that doubling effect. But having said that, it becomes hard work to manoeuvre the lines about, and it is hard on the ropes as well. Well, you know, with these rigging rings, you kind of get the best of both worlds, really. So yeah, you know, and in regards to, you know, lads just starting out in rigging, you could do a lot worse than to go straight to these and, you know, get the pulleys another time, because unless you're actually raising stuff up, they're not helping you, you know, they're really not helping you, they're not making you any safer, you know. And one thing about pulleys as well, which always bugged me over the years, like, because you know, I obviously started with you know, thimbles and natural crotches and stuff like that, and when I started using pulley, I mean, it's a long time ago now and I am used to it, you know, if you ever unclip the rigging line, you know, from your belt, let's say you're climbing around the tree, you can't afford to let it go or it'll fuck off back up to the top of the tree, and it's, with the X-rings that doesn't happen, you know. And if you're doing a big spreading tree, you can actually, you know, unclip your rigging line, you know, bundle it up and throw it to the target where you've got to get to. You're not sort of dragging it around everywhere, but you don't have to fear that it's going to, all the weight, you know, on the tail end of the line is going to pull the whole thing back up to the high point. And it's only a little thing, but it's kind of, you know, it is annoying when it happens. So, but with the X-rings, it doesn't happen. So, so that's it. I hope that's kind of maybe helped somebody. You know, this whole talk is about, you know, the main factor to me is the safety aspect of it. You know, so and that's where I would favour the rigging rings, and that's why I always do favour them. Okay, so that's it really. Yeah, just a word about this sweater. It's not in case you're wondering, it's not a Christmas kind of sweater or anything. Don't, you know, it's a surfing sweater. You know, I've had a few people making fun of it and saying, hey, you know, that's your Christmas sweater, is it? No, is it? Fuck, this is a surfing sweater just because it's got a few stars on it. See, they're stars, they're not snowflakes. So, just in case you're wondering. Alright, cheers.